What happens when we begin to realize that the 200-year experiment we've called the American healthcare system has failed? Tune in to Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD, and join the conversation about how to heal our broken system to reverse our current health crisis. The entire world is looking for answers, and the truth is hidden in plain sight. Learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time, with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, when you can call in and ask the questions that matter most to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. You're listening to us live here on Dream Vision 7 Radio. Our number, before I forget, is area code 646-558-8656. And you're listening to Awakened Wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Mylaine Riobe. And today we're just going to have a continuation of last week. So we got some good feedback from our show last week, which involves my burnout assessment, which is the basis of my online course that we're offering. And so we got through the 5 questions and we started talking about 2 of the 4 metabolic types. And so today we're just going to do a quick overview of what we did last week and really dig into the metabolic types and what they mean. And so I'll go through the questions just one more time. And if you do want our questionnaire, it's almost up on our site. Sorry, we've been doing hurricane preparedness down here in South Florida. And so it's just about ready. It just needs to be posted. And if you guys are interested in getting a copy of the burnout assessment form that has the 5 questions that you can work through to determine your metabolic type, send us an email at info@riobeintegrativemedicine.com. We'll add you to our newsletter list, our email list, and as soon as it's live, we'll send you a quick email to let you know that you can go ahead and log on to the website and download it. All right, so I'll go through the questions just one more time for you. And hopefully you guys had a chance to work through these questions because they're not intuitive questions. People don't typically think about these things. And so it takes people a little while to really actually work through them. So the first question is going to be, how do I rate my own energy level when I first wake up in the morning? And it's on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is, I can't get out of bed. I'm so exhausted. 10 is, I feel great. I can bounce out of bed and do whatever I want, right? And so you'll have a number. And you want to make sure it's on an average day, right? You don't want to pick a day that was a little bit unusual. You want to pick an average day for you. And if you work during the week, focus on your work days and not so much on the weekend days when you might be able to sleep in. So focus on an average day. That's a typical day for you, and select a number. It doesn't have to be super specific, right? I mean, if you're exhausted, obviously it's a 1 or a 2, right? If you're not tired at all, you don't need my burnout assessment, right? You're going to be a 9 or a 10. The only way you need the burnout assessment if you're a 9 or a 10 is if you crash at some point later in the day, which we'll get to with the next series of questions. So the first question is, how do I feel in the morning? 1 to 10, right? And so if someone's really fatigued and burnt out, they might pick like a 5 or even a 4. And so that would be your starting number, right, in the morning. The second question is, does this number go up or down as I move through my day? So again, an average typical day, right? So if you're working, it's, as I'm getting ready to go to work, if you're driving to work or if you work from home, whatever the situation is, as I'm moving through my day, right? And I'm going through the whole day. How does that energy level change? Does it go up or does it go down? And that tells you a little bit about your dynamic metabolic type, right? If your energy level starts out at a certain point and it goes down as you move through your day to the point where you think you might need a nap at 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock, you're feeling really tired. If it goes down, then you are a deficient dynamic metabolic type. If it goes up, as soon as I start moving around, I feel great, right? So let's say you go from a 4 to a 7, that's an excessive metabolic type. So you just want to take note of that. And when you go through our questionnaire, we're going to walk you through what metabolic type you are. So just so you have a sense when you answer the questions, what they mean. We also have a little description of what the questions mean and to help guide you through answering them. So the second question is, does this number go up or down as I move through my day? Question number 3 is, does exercise make me feel worse or better? So I have clients who will say, I'm too tired to work out. I wouldn't dare go to the gym. I would never make it through a workout. That's a deficient metabolic type, right? So you would say my energy level goes down. If you're too tired to work out, that means your energy level goes down with exercise, right? I have some clients who say, I don't feel good unless I work out. If I sit still, I feel horrible. I have to move around all the time, right? And so when I work out, I feel so much better. So that's your number going up with exercise, right? If your number goes up with exercise, that means you have an excessive metabolic type, which we'll get to in this podcast. If your number goes down, that means you have a deficient metabolic type. And what's important about those two different metabolic types we'll talk about, but they're very important to distinguish from each other. So if when you move, you feel better, that means that something's stuck and you have to force it to get out of your way, right? So there's an excess of stuff in your way. That's why we call it an excess metabolic type. If you feel worse when you move around and exercise, that tells you something else. That tells you that you didn't have enough energy to power the exercise. So that's different than there's stuff in my way that I have to force to move, right? There's something different about forcing your energy to move as opposed to not having enough energy to move. And that's the difference between an excessive metabolic type and a deficiency metabolic type. And why those two are so important to distinguish is because they're treated completely differently according to traditional Chinese medicine. If you are a deficient metabolic type and you try and power your way through anything, you're going to get more deficient and you're going to burn yourself out even more. If you are an excessive metabolic type and you need to move around, but you sit still too much, if you're too sedentary as an excess metabolic type, you're going to feel worse. You're going to get burnt out because there's going to be more and more junk accumulating in your system. And we call that excess, whether it's inflammation, whether it's toxins, all of it is still excessive. It's stuff that doesn't belong in there, that's in there, that you have to force to move. We call that an excessive metabolic type. And so the next question is, if I sit still, how do I feel? Do I feel stiff and achy? Do I feel more tired when I sit still? And does that feel better if I move around? So if I'm sitting at my desk and I'm working and I'm, nodding off, or, my back starts to hurt, my neck is achy, that tells me something. And if I have to get up and move around to feel better, that tells me something, right? So if I feel stiff and achy and tired, if I sit at my desk or if I sit still for more than an hour, that means junk is accumulating as I'm sitting still, right? And that's excess. If I feel better when I sit still, that's telling me that I'm able to restore myself when I sit still. I get rest and I feel better. So I'll have clients who say, yeah, I actually feel better if I just rest and don't do anything. They are deficient, right? So when you rest and you're not using up all your energy, you feel better because you're deficient. If you feel worse when you sit still and you have to get up to move around to feel better, that's excess. That means the junk just stops when you sit still and it's in your way again. And you have to get up and move around to force it to move. That's an excess metabolic type. And so those are the first 4 questions. The 5th question is, do I feel hot or cold compared to most other people? That's a really critical question because that tells you if you have a hot metabolic type or a cold metabolic type. Again, the reason we distinguish hot from cold is because they're treated completely differently. And so what you're going to end up with is either a hot excessive metabolic type, right? So if you feel hot all the time, or your body temperature is hovering around 99 degrees when you're not sick, if that's your average temperature, and if you're thirsty all the time, that's another sign of heat, then that tells you you are a hot metabolic type. And if you have to move around, if you feel better with exercise, and you have to move around to feel better, that tells you that you have a hot excessive metabolic type, which is one of the four. You can also have a hot deficient metabolic type, right? So if you feel hot all the time compared to your friends, I'm always the one without a sweater on and everybody else is complaining that they're cold. That tells you that you are a hot metabolic type. And again, what's important about this question is don't compare yourself to just one other person. Don't compare yourself to your spouse only. You want to get this kind of global sense, compared to most other people I'm around, do I feel hot or cold compared to them as a group? If you're comparing yourself to only one other person, you don't know what that other person is. So you don't know what the benchmark is, if that makes sense. So, if I go out to lunch with my friends, I'm always the one thinking it's too hot and they're always okay, right? Or, I have 5 kids living in the house with me and my spouse, and we're always, duking it out over the thermostat. I always want it to be cooler. They always want it to be warmer. That tells you you're a hot metabolic type. And you can just take your body temperature first thing in the morning as a confirmation. If your body temperature hovers around 99 or up, that tells you you're a hot metabolic type. And you'll know if you're a deficient or excessive if, you get up, you don't feel great, and then your energy level goes down as the day goes by. And if you could take a nap at 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock, you would, right? That's telling you you're a deficient metabolic type. Exercise does not make you feel better, and you feel better with rest. That's telling you you are a deficient metabolic type. So once you know that you're hot and deficient, now you have your dynamic metabolic type of hot deficient. On the other side, we have cold, right? So if you're the one that's always got the jacket on, right? If when you go to the doctor, your temperature is always 97, I'll have clients who say, yeah, if my temperature goes to 99, I know I have a fever because it starts so low. Or I'm always the one trying to turn, the heater on when everybody else doesn't want it on. Or I have the sweater with me everywhere I go because I'm always cold, and none of my friends bring their sweaters because they're not cold, right? So you know that you are a cold metabolic type. And again, if you go back and if you're that person who feels tired in the morning and then your energy level gets worse throughout the day, you feel worse when you move around and exercise, and you are cold and deficient, and that's a metabolic type, right? So that's cold deficient metabolic type. And then cold excessive metabolic type is the fourth metabolic type. Again, you're cold all the time. You've got the sweater on. Your temperature is 97 degrees or even 96. I've had patients have temperatures that low. That tells you you're cold. And then if you are excessive, you will feel better as you move around. Workouts will make you feel better. You'll feel more tired and stiff and achy if you sit still. So then you are a cold, excessive, dynamic metabolic type, right? So almost ready for our first commercial break. We'll talk about the hot, deficient metabolic type first, just to kind of get a recap from last week. So if you're too hot, right, what that loosely means is that you're too acidic. So we don't really have a medical term in our mainstream model for hot. The closest thing would be acidic. And so what's wrong with being acidic, right? What's the problem? The problem is when you're too acidic, that's a sign that you're not using oxygen efficiently. And so if we go back and we look at how our cells actually function, they need oxygen to function, obviously, right? And they need vitamins and minerals to allow the oxygen to function. So if you have a lot of vitamin deficiencies and mineral deficiencies, what happens is your cells don't actually use oxygen. So you breathe the oxygen in, but your cells have to actually also breathe the oxygen in, right? And we don't have lungs in our cells, right? We call them mitochondria. And so the mitochondria take the oxygen into themselves and use vitamins and minerals to make energy. So if we have a bunch of vitamin and mineral deficiencies, the mitochondria will not take the oxygen in. And then we'll use a backup system that we call anaerobic respiration. So aerobic respiration is when our cells can use the oxygen that we breathe. Anaerobic respiration is when our cells cannot use the oxygen that we breathe. And that happens when there are vitamin and mineral deficiencies, because that's what powers the machine that takes the oxygen into the cells. And so when you don't use oxygen, what happens is you make a whole lot less energy in your cell. So what happens is the mitochondria, which are the energy powerhouses where all your energy is made, they don't function if you have vitamin and mineral deficiencies, or if you have a lot of toxins, clogging them up. And so you can't use your mitochondria under those circumstances. So your cells have a backup just in case, right? We call that anaerobic respiration. So what happens is the oxygen won't go in the mitochondria and you'll make a lot less energy. And so you're going to, by default, be tired just because of that. The second reason you're going to be exhausted is because the byproduct of your cells not using oxygen efficiently because of vitamin deficiencies or toxins is lactic acid. And so we think of lactic acid as something that we get a burn when we work out. That's a whole other kind of lactic acid. So that one's not dangerous. The one that's dangerous is the one we don't feel the burn from. So we know that it causes burning, right? Because we've all experienced it when we exercise and we run out of oxygen, our muscles start to burn, right? And so we understand burning as a byproduct of heat. And that's where the association of being too hot and lactic acid come in. There's an insidious lactic acid, a metabolic lactic acid that occurs inside your cells that you don't feel the burn from when you can't use oxygen because of deficiency. And so what happens is you start to get warmer. And so you feel hotter. Your temperature might be a little bit higher than usual. So when there's too much acidity in the body, we combat that with alkalinity or an alkaline diet. So when we come back from this first commercial break, we'll talk about some alkaline foods that will help if you have a hot deficient metabolic type. And we'll talk about how to treat a hot deficient versus a hot excessive metabolic type. So you're listening to Awakened Wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Mylaine Riobe, and we will be right back after this first commercial break.
What happens when we begin to realize that the 200-year experiment we've called the American healthcare system has failed? Learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness on Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD. Tune in every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, when you can call in and ask Dr. Mylaine the questions that matter most to you. Dr. Mylaine is the medical director of the Riobe Institute of Integrative Medicine in Jupiter, Florida. For more information, visit RIOBE-integrativemedicine.com. Dream Vision 7 Radio Network invites you in for this dynamic, forward-thinking show.
Join Dr. Bernie Siegel on Mind Health Matters every Thursday and Friday, 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. Bernie will draw from his inspirational personal journey, offering us special nuggets of his sacred wisdom weaved through his delightful stories. Listen in as Bernie reminds us to be fully engaged in life.
Ever wonder what it's like to have your own radio show? Well, wonder no longer, because you can dip into the radio airwaves by being host for the day on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. It's a fabulous way to get your radio feet wet. It's an opportunity to market your business, modality, or book. have a guest, mention a sponsor, and take callers. Or you may want to facilitate a lesson by going solo. It's up to you. Listeners can be online, mobile, in cars with Bluetooth, or listen through Amazon's Echo by asking, Alexa, play Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. For more details, go to dreamvision7radio.com and click on Host for the Day.
Omega Institute, offering workshops, retreats, and online learning dedicated to awakening the best in the human spirit. For over 40 years, Omega has seen more than 1 million people come through its doors to grow, learn, and find a greater sense of purpose. With over 350 workshops to choose from, Omega offers something for everyone. Located in Rhinebeck, New York, just 90 miles north of New York City, Omega's natural environment and quiet pace allow for extraordinary experiences to unfold. Learn more at eomega.org or call 877-944-2002. Again, 877-944-2002.
Delight your kids with an enchanting journey by reading the Paper Doll Kids children's book by Deborah Beauvais and Janine Sullivan. There's even a catchy tune, Kids for Love Song, produced by Bob Sherwood and sung by kids just like yours. The story weaves around 7 paper dolls flying around the world doing good deeds as they bring important attention to our endangered animal friends. There's even a magical ring with a universal message. Kids become interested in service projects, action through compassion, and planting seeds that nurture positive change. The Paper Doll Kids and Kids for Love Song are a production of the Kids for Love Project. Get the book now on Amazon Kindle and the song on CD Baby or iTunes.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
Welcome back to Awakened Wellness Now. I'm your host, Dr. Mylaine Riobe. So hot deficient metabolic type, right? So you know you're too hot based on your body actually telling you you're too hot, right? But you have to be kind of listening with different ears, right? You have to listen to the subtle signs of fatigue. And how your fatigue manifests through the day with the 5 questions, right? And so alkaline foods combat a hot metabolic type. Whether it's excessive or deficient doesn't matter in terms of the type of food you'll want to eat. So alkaline foods tend to be foods that have a very high water content, because the water that's in plants is alkaline by its nature. And so, we think of greens drinks, we think of salads. Lettuce doesn't have a lot of vitamins and minerals, but it has a ton of alkaline water. And so it's still, of nutritional value in terms of lessening acidity in the body. So lettuce is a huge alkaline food. Celery. So you can think of things, what has a ton of water in it, right? Celery, lettuce, green leafy vegetables, lemons, oranges, grapefruits. What else? Different types of lettuce, Boston, romaine, all of it, very high water content. Cucumbers is the one I was trying to think of. Very high water content, right? So if you are a hot metabolic type, lemon water would suit you very well. Cucumber water, greens drinks, salads, lots of salads. Now, there's no such actual thing as an alkaline diet, right? That's kind of a myth. The entire human body is made of acid. And so you can't really have an alkaline diet. So what you're trying to do is to reduce the lactic acid in your body. So you're going to have to eat acids because just about every other type of food is actually an acid. Proteins are acids, fats are acids. So there's no way to get around having a healthy diet without eating acidic food. But what you want to do is to make sure that you're having high quality protein, high quality fat, so that those acids are efficient in your body. Your whole body is made of acid. So there's no such thing as I'm just going to have an alkaline diet. You can't do it. It's not even possible. And so what you want to do is to reduce the lactic acid in your body. That's the goal. And the best way to do that is with plants, right? So that's why the vegetarian diet works so well. It works extremely well for people that have a hot metabolic type. And because of our diet here in the United States of America, it is not uncommon for many people to have a ton of acidity in their body. And so the vegetarian diet or the vegan diet will work extremely well for those people until they're not hot anymore, right? And so everything has a limit when we're restricting ourselves. So high quality proteins are still important in an alkaline diet. So that's a point of confusion for a lot of my clients. They're like, well, what am I going to have for protein that's not, acidic? It's hard to avoid those things unless you're completely vegan, right? And so if you're not vegan, right, if you are an omnivore, then you're going to have a preponderance of plant-based raw types of vegetables and greens, drinks, and beverages combined with very efficient proteins, right? So if you are an omnivore, in other words, you eat meat and vegetables, then you're going to want grass-fed, grass-finished, organic, types of protein sources, beef, poultry, very clean, super, super clean. And you need a good bit of it. If you're vegan, then you're looking at, meat substitutes and, tempeh and soy and those types of things to round out your proteins. Legumes are a good source of protein. They just also have a lot of carbs. So just know what you're eating, right? So that you can watch your calories. And tropical fruits are also very highly alkaline. They are in Chinese medicine what we would call cooling. So when we say something is cooling, we're saying loosely that it's alkaline. Watermelon is one of the most alkaline types of foods that you can eat, but it comes with a ton of sugar. Right. So again, you just want to be careful. So if you don't want to have a lot of sugar, then you might want to focus on the celery and the lettuce and the cucumbers and the lemons and stay away from the pineapples and the watermelons and, the tropical fruits. Again, I mentioned this last week, but nature has a built-in balancing system, right? So if you live in the tropics where we're close to the equator, it's super hot all the time. Nature built into itself cooling foods. So the tropical foods are cooling. And if you live in the, far north or far south, you're going to get hotter food. Bison, elk, gamey foods are very hot and acidic. So if you live in places where it's super cold, nature puts warmer and warmer foods as you go up and up and up. And so nature has balance built into itself, and it's perfect. So we came along and created heaters and air conditioners and, other means of changing our climates around. And so we've kind of gone out of balance with how nature built the system, which is fine. You just have to know, okay, if I'm always in air conditioning, even if I live in Florida, I could still be a cold metabolic type, right? Or even if I live in Canada, I could still be a hot metabolic type because I'm always in the heat, perhaps, right? A heated climate. And so we just have to know, who am I in this climate and what do I need to do, right? So if you are a hot deficient metabolic type, you still want alkaline foods, but what you want to do that's a little different than the excessive type is you want to have small, frequent meals. And the reason you need small, frequent meals is because you're deficient. And so when someone is deficient, they have to eat often because of the way that the body functions. You have to constantly be giving it just enough energy to do what it needs to do so that it can resume its functions that it had to shut down because it didn't have what it needed. And so another thing I teach people is, even though you're on an alkaline diet and you're having lemon water and cucumber water, make sure that the first thing you put in your mouth every morning is warm. Because just like we said last week, the stomach needs to be really hot. It needs to be able to increase its temperature to 100 degrees. So if you're starting at with a very cold beverage, something right out of the fridge or frozen, you're going to drop your stomach temperature, even if you're a hot metabolic type, and you're not going to be able to make enzymes and enough acid to digest your food. So you want to get your stomach off to a great start in the morning. Have something warm but not acidic in the morning, right? So you could have like a tea with lemon. So it's warm, it's got a little honey in it, but it's also alkaline. And you drink that warm so that you get your stomach primed for the day. Then you go alkaline with the raw food. So deficient people need to need to eat more frequently. So you might need to have 5 or 6 small meals throughout the day, right? An excessive person doesn't need to do that. And in fact, if you're a hot excessive person, these are the people that do really well with intermittent fasting, because what you're doing is you're allowing the body to get rid of toxins as you're not eating. And so those people would be very well suited for intermittent fasting. Deficient people will not be well suited for intermittent fasting because that will burn them out even more. So that's the big difference between food choices when people are deficient versus excessive. So you're still eating alkaline food if you're too hot, but how you eat it matters, and how often you eat matters. As far as exercise is concerned, again, if you're a deficient person, we have to recommend that you do things that are restorative. I tell people steal energy from wherever you can get it, from the planet, ground yourself. Go out in the sun at dawn and dusk and make sure that you have, you're getting the infrared frequencies from the sun. That actually gives you more energy, and it restores your cells. So restorative yoga, yin yoga, tai chi, qigong, moderate weight training is excellent for people who are deficient. Excessive people need to move a little bit more. Not that you won't benefit from yoga and tai chi and qigong. Those are still phenomenal, but you have to crank it up a little. So you might do very well with boot camp. You might do very well with high intensity interval training so that you're moving that energy around while you're doing the alkaline diet. And so what that does is that removes toxins from your system more efficiently. And it also reduces the acidity in the body. And so next category is going to be cold deficient, and then we'll talk about cold excessive. Let me see if we have any questions. Last week, I believe I heard I should be eating more protein. Today, we're talking about alkaline fruits, etc. My question is it one or the other? It's both. Or is it a salad before protein? It's both. Yeah, it's both. So you need protein every day. In particular for women, and in particular for people who are deficient. So if you're a deficient metabolic type, you need a lot more protein than someone who's an excessive metabolic type. Why? Because your body needs to restore itself. And, just about everything in your body is made of protein. And if you're not eating enough protein, your body will fall apart, and it falls apart when it's deficient. It can also fall apart when it's toxic and excessive. But deficiency, you need to actually eat more protein than you think, right? In our online course, we talk about exactly how to figure out how much protein you need for yourself, right? Based on the questionnaire and the lessons, the live lessons that we do. So you're going to actually end up with a customized program for yourself that you can create with the course. But in general, I tell people, every meal should have a protein. Regardless of if you're vegetarian or not, every meal should have a protein. And if you're deficient, you want to start building in small, frequent meals, like 5 or 6 meals. They're not huge meals, they're small, but about 20 grams of protein with each meal, at least 25 to 30. It depends on your weight, it depends on your goals, it depends on other factors that we talk about in our online course. Too much detail to go into in the podcast, but, generally speaking, most women who are deficient are going to need somewhere between 20 to upwards of 30, 35 grams of protein per meal. And you want to really have a meal every 3 hours if you're deficient. And so if you're cold deficient, right? So if your body temperature is 97 degrees all the time, and if you go to 99, you're sick, right? And if you're the one with the jacket on, you're duking it out to turn the heat on higher and higher, right? You're cold. And so you need to warm yourself up, right? Cold could also mean you have a thyroid condition. It could also mean there are some hormonal issues, so this is excluding all of that. We're talking about simply your metabolism is too cold, right? And so when your body temperature is too cold, what happens is you constrict your blood vessels. So we all see that, right? And when it's cold, our veins don't show. When it's warmer, our veins pop out, right? And so that's a sign that when it's cold, your blood vessels actually get smaller. When it's warm, they get wider. And that's so that you can keep your body temperature stable. The problem is when you override that mechanism with being too cold all the time, then your blood vessels stay constricted, right? And so one of the signs that my clients will have is they'll say, yeah, the tips of my fingers or maybe their entire hand is always really cold, and their feet could be cold as well, or even numb. Sometimes the tips of their fingers are numb. We talk about Raynaud's phenomenon, right? When it's too cold, the tips of the fingers get white and numb. That's because the body itself is too cold, right? And so the blood vessels were already not dilated and open enough because you're too cold, period. And so when you go into an even colder climate, they constrict even more, and now you have numbness, right? And so the solution for that is to warm yourself up. And food is the best way to do that. So, people who are too cold are going to drive their temperature down even more if they eat a lot of salads, if they eat a lot of drink a lot of greens drinks, eat things that are cold or frozen. Or raw. Those things are naturally colder. And so what you're going to do is you're going to drive yourself even colder and colder. So Chinese medicine is all about balance. If you're too cold, you warm yourself up. If you're too hot, you cool yourself down. If you're deficient, you build yourself up. If you're excessive, you drain yourself down so that you get back to a balance point. And so people who are cold need to eat warm foods. So I tell my clients who are too cold, cook everything, like cook everything. Now, can you cook cucumbers? I don't know that you can. So you probably have to eliminate cucumbers, celery. I cook celery sometimes, so it's cookable. I don't know about cucumbers. Lettuce is even being cooked these days, right? And so pretty much anything can be cooked. And so we recommend that you cook food if you're too cold. Spice it up too. And when I say spice it up, don't go crazy with like cayenne pepper and jalapenos. It's slow and steady wins the race. If you shock your body too much, you'll actually go backwards. You'll go off on another side of imbalance. You don't want to do that. So it's a slow, steady building of your temperature back up. So that your body is not shocked into being, going from one extreme to another. That's stressful for the body. So I tell people, don't make it too spicy. It's cinnamon, it's nutmeg, it's ginger, it's fennel. Ghee is very warming. It is, anything you can think of, garlic, curry. I tell people avoid cayenne unless it's the tiniest of sprinkles, right? If it's burning your mouth, it's too hot. So you want this slow, steady buildup of your temperature. It's soups, it's stews, it's bone broths that are warm, and it's avoiding things that are naturally cold. Like, so I'll tell my clients who are too cold, stay off the ice cream for a while. It's not forever, but you have to build your body temperature back up to 98.6. Once it's there, if you have ice cream once in a while, it's okay. But you just have to remember, I had ice cream. Let me warm myself up from the ice cream so that I don't drive myself back down into being too cold again. So it's just this self-awareness that we teach you in the online course, just to think about the subtle things, that your body is experiencing it that can drive it out of balance. So it's just increasing self-awareness. That's really what the course is about through these 5 questions and hammering out what these questions mean in terms of metabolic type. So if you're cold deficient, again, small, frequent meals. Skipping breakfast when you're deficient is not recommended. Skipping breakfast when you're excessive is okay. So you have to know, am I deficient or am I excessive? And then you'll know if I can do, can I do intermittent fasting or can't I? If I end up with a deficient metabolic type, whether it's hot or cold, I know I'm not the faster, right? If I end up with an excessive metabolic type, whether it's hot or cold, I know I can fast, right, safely. Also, people with an excess metabolic type will tolerate gentle cleanses. They're the ones that will tolerate the colonics. They're the ones that will tolerate, the liver cleanses. And again, you want to be very cautious, that you are not doing anything extreme. Again, slow and steady always wins the race. So if you're excessive, cleanses are going to be of benefit to you, not often, right? You don't want to overdo it. You really want to make it very gentle. So that your body is not shocked, from one place to another, driving it too far metabolically too soon. That's extremely stressful. So you don't want to do that. But people who are excessive do very well with high intensity exercises. But again, that's only until they reach a balance point. You don't want to keep doing those things once you've reached that balance point, because then you're going to drive yourself into deficiency, right? So this is why the 5 questions are so important, because you'll want to do them periodically. Your metabolic types are not forever. They are dynamic. And that's why I call them dynamic metabolic types. They will change. And we want them to change. That's the whole point of the exercise, right? So if we're on one extreme, we want to change our metabolic type so that we're in the center and we're neither too hot or too cold. We're neither excessive nor deficient. Now, you're never fully balanced, right? We used to joke in medical school that if you're completely stable, you're dead. So there's always this up and down around a stable point, right? So your heart rate's never just 80, right? If it were just 80 every heartbeat, you would die. That's actually a sign of instability, believe it or not. So your heart rate jumps around from beat to beat, and that's normal. So we jump around. One day we might be a little on the hot side, the next day on the cold side. If it's a pattern, that's a problem, right? And so let's see, question, or is it time for a break? It's time for a break. Let's take a break. So we talked about, I think, all 4 metabolic types. If you're interested in our online course, we're about to launch. So just shoot us an email at info@riobeintegrativemedicine.com if you'd like a copy of the 5 questions to start working on them. And if you'd like to get more information about our online course, visit our website at awakenedwellnessnow.com. You can watch some introductory videos, book a call with our team, and then we'll see if you're a great fit for our online course. And we'd love to help you in any way that we can. You're listening to Awakened Wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Mylaine Riobe, and we'll be right back after this commercial break.
What happens when we begin to realize that the 200-year experiment we've called the American healthcare system has failed? Learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness on Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD. Tune in every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, when you can call in and ask Dr. Mylaine the questions that matter most to you. Dr. Mylaine is the medical director of the Riobe Institute of Integrative Medicine in Jupiter, Florida. For more information, visit RIOBE-integrativemedicine.com. Dream Vision 7 Radio Network invites you in for this dynamic, forward-thinking show.
EDCIA is a U.S. nonprofit dedicated to the dream of ending childhood malnutrition for millions of children around the world. Through the manufacture of Plumpy Nut and other nutrient-rich peanut-based ready-to-use foods, EDCIA has already delivered life and hope to nearly 1 million children in over 26 developing countries. To find out how you can join EDCIA's dream of ending childhood malnutrition, please visit edciaglobal.org.
What if dreams can diagnose your life? What if we can meet the love of our life in dreams? Join host Kat O'Keefe Canavas, the #1 internationally best-selling author of Dreams That Can Save Your Life, written with Duke University medical doctor Larry Burke. Dreaming Healing is where we'll explore dreams, research, and interpret dreams from you, the caller. Dreaming Healing shows can be heard every Tuesday at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern, with live shows on the first and third evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific Time on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. Come live your dreams out loud with Kat.
Are you searching for a way to help create global change? Dream Vision 7 Radio Network's vision is to have an eclectic group of radio hosts dedicated to educating, enlightening, and helping humankind with positive messages and tools that enhance lives using different modalities and programs. If you would like to join our team and help illuminate the universe, call Deborah at 508-226-1723 or Deborah at dreamvision7radio.com. This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
Welcome back to Awakened Wellness Now. I'm your host, Dr. Mylaine Riobe, and today we are doing part 2 of the 5 questions that banish burnout for good. And I think we have more questions. I wish I heard you. Oh, sorry. I wish I heard you say spices, not chili peppers. I burned myself up from the inside using the peppers I thought you meant. Yeah, no, I mean, you can use bell peppers, right? They're cooling, right? So if you look at bell peppers, there's a lot of water in bell peppers, right? So they're alkaline. But you can, if you're cold, you want to cook those bell peppers, right? If you're hot, you can eat them raw. But no, it's always about balance. And so you don't want to do anything extreme. Everything is, I want to, slowly and steadily move in a very specific direction. That way you can notice when you're reaching a balance point, right? Now I'm not too cold anymore. I took my temperature for the last week. It's 98.6, right? So now what do? Now I do the 5 questions again and see where I need to go. And so once you get back to balance, you have to change what you're doing, right? Because you are purposefully moving yourself in a very specific direction. So if I'm deficient, I'm building myself up. But there could be a way that I could build myself up too much and become excessive, right? So we want to be careful. There's a way that I could, if I'm too hot, there's a way I can cool myself down too much to where my body temperature starts to drop below normal if I keep doing that alkaline diet for too long. And so that's where Chinese medicine is really powerful. It tells us that no restrictive diet is recommended for extended periods of time because it understands it's driving your metabolism in a very specific direction. You don't want to overshoot the mark because if you overshoot the mark, you're back to square one in a whole other direction, right? So you want to go slow so when you hit the mark. And when you hit the mark, then you want to level everything out. So if you were too hot, for example, and you're on this alkaline diet, and now your body temperature is cooling down and it's been 98.6 for like a week or 2, you don't want to keep doing an alkaline diet at that point, right? Because now you're going to drive your body temperature down too low. So what you want to do when you reach that balance point is level everything out. So now I'm going to have some alkaline, and some spices, and so I'm going to stay on top of the mountain, right? Once you get on top of the wave, if you're a surfer, I'm not, but you know that you want to stay on the wave, right? You don't want to fall off. And so there's this way that you subtly move back and forth. Even when we walk, we're doing that. Even when we stand still, we're not actually standing still. We're actually moving, about a balanced point. So we're going to the left, we're going to the right. So once you reach balance, you want to have a little alkaline, a little spicy, and you keep it balanced. If you are a deficient type and you had to be very restorative with yourself, once you no longer have the drop in your energy, once you no longer are tired from your workouts, you want to step it up a little bit and not be quite as restorative, because now you can be a little bit more active. Right. So you want to maybe step up your workouts a bit, so if you wanted to build up some muscle mass at the gym, now's the time to start increasing the weights, right? If you wanted to become more cardiovascularly, if you wanted to build up more cardiovascular stamina, now's the time to increase the intensity of your cardio just a little, because you don't want to overdo it. So once you reach that balance point, you want to level everything out so that you stay on top of the wave, right? Or you stay on top of the mountain and you don't go down the other side. So these are all the things we talk about in our online course with live Q&As, live lessons. And so I have so much exciting stuff to tell people about these 5 questions and these 4 dynamic metabolic types, because they're going to be valuable forever, right? You can ask these same 5 questions 40 years from now and come up with a nutrition plan and a lifestyle plan, an exercise plan, et cetera, that will still work for you based on where you are then, right? So that's what's so exciting for me about this course. So I hope you guys are on board and join me. Let's see, I think we had one more question. It's been a while since I listened to your show. My old man still hasn't changed his eating habits. I gave up on him. So it's just me. All right. He doesn't know I am because he doesn't like my suggestions. Okay. I'm glad to be back hearing your show. I'm way behind and getting caught up. I'm just amazed how much information you share. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome back. That's a common thing that happens with clients, and we all experience this, right? Whoever we're living with or dealing with is not on board, right? And that's okay, because ultimately it's our journey, right? People come along with us for the ride, but ultimately it's our journey. And so I tell people you have to listen to your heart, right? And that's actually module number 1. It's about mindset. It's about self-care, right? So in order to become self-aware, you have to have self-care, right? And self-love. And self-love is unconditional, right? It doesn't matter what spouses think or partners think or children think or parents think or authoritative figures think. It really only matters what you believe. And so I tell people, demonstrate what you know, because when you talk to people and you tell them something, they're much less likely to buy into it than if you show it to them. It's experiential. So if they see you experiencing the benefits, then they'll be like, oh, wow, so-and-so is doing the thing and I'm watching her literally change. She has more energy, or, she's lost those last 5 pounds she was trying to lose, or, she reached that milestone with her workouts or what have you. Then they kind of get curious and they start to meander over and, kind of ask you, what have you been doing? Right. So I tell people, don't try and talk people into anything, you just show them. Right. So that's why I walk my talk. Right. And so you're a walking billboard of what you do, right? And that's the only advice I can give you in terms of when people are on board or not on board. But I congratulate you for following your own heart. And I tell people, demonstrate your love to others by experiencing what you know to be the truth, and then they will come around. They can't unknow what they know, so once they see you living a certain lifestyle and benefiting from that lifestyle, they can't unknow what they just saw, right? And so it will sink in, whether they want to admit it or not. That's a whole other, conversation, but it's irrelevant, right? What's relevant is you doing what you need to do for yourself and making your mark in the world. So if you don't influence that one person, there will be 10 other people that you influence, right? When you go out with friends, or, when you're able to participate more in your community because you're not tired, when you're able to, spend time with your children that you were too tired, to spend time with before. All of these things, when you're able to perform better in your career or your profession, you're able to get that business off the ground that you couldn't get off the ground because you were too tired, right? So you're going to impact people regardless. You don't get to choose who you impact, right? And so you just be who you are, and let those who want to follow, and those who don't, it's their choice, right? That's our free will that we have. And so congratulations to you for coming on board with that. All right, so I think, question, oxygen and breathing. Would your breathing ritual help? Yeah, it's not my breathing ritual. It's the HeartMath Institute's breathing technique. It's an ancient technique. It's not new. They just hacked it, and figured out that doing it for 3 minutes was as good as meditating for much longer. And I'm not convinced it has the same actual impact as meditation. But yes, the 3-minute HeartMath breathing technique. I take no credit. I'm just an evangelist. But they discovered that just 3 minutes lasts 6 hours. That's what's so powerful, because you are cramming oxygen into your system. You still have to couple that with proper nutrition, right? Because if you still have all those vitamin and mineral deficiencies, it doesn't matter how much oxygen you take in. So the breathing has to be coupled with the food. So nutrition's critical, breathing is critical. Then they come together for the magic, right? But if one is missing or the other is missing, you're not going to get the benefit. So it's the coupling of the two. And that goes back to the mindset module, right? The very first module that we start out with in our online course is mindset. And your breathing actually determines your mindset. Your breath is the primary way that we communicate with ourselves. It's not through thoughts. We communicate with other people through thoughts, but with ourselves, we actually communicate through our breath. And then how we took a breath determines what thoughts pop up or don't pop up. So if we are taking calming breaths, we will release positive, neurotransmitters and hormones, and the thoughts that follow that neurological stimulus will be positive. If we take shallow, short breaths, then we release the neurotransmitters that are, fight or flight, and the hormones that are fight or flight. And then we'll get the fear-based thoughts. Or it could work the other way around. We see something that frightens us, that releases those hormones, and then the thoughts pile up. So the way that you breathe actually matters. So that's the most important thing. And I think we're coming down to the end. Let's see. Make sure I got all these. Yeah, I think that's it, Rachel. All right. Thank you so much for listening to Awakened Wellness Now. Again, if you want more information about our online course, visit awakenedwellnessnow.com. If you want a copy of our questionnaire, just send us an email at info@riobeintegrativemedicine.com. Riobe is R-I-O-B as in boy, E as in Edward. And we'll get you on our email list so that we can notify you when it's up on our website. It's almost done. And so everybody stay safe and dry. If you're down in South Florida, everywhere else, stay safe and healthy and blessed. And until next time, thank you so much.
Join us next time on Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD, to learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness. Awakened Wellness airs every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time, with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern of each month. Meanwhile, you can join our Facebook page at facebook.com/Awakened Wellness and let us know what you'd like to discuss on future episodes. Dr. Mylaine is the medical director of the Riobe Institute of Integrative Medicine in Jupiter, Florida. For more information, visit riobeintegrativemedicine.com. This show is part of the Dream Vision 7 radio network.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.